Hello, everybody, and welcome to our last open webinar of this year. My name is Adelia Rashidova. I represent ITC. I work for the Trade and Market Intelligence section alongside my lovely colleague Anya Jankowska-Eriksson, who is a market analyst, and she has worked in OECD and World Economic Forum, and now she has joined ITC, Global Trade Helpdesk. We work with WTO, and Catherine here is one of our main partners, and we always have pleasure having her with us on our webinar. So she'll be showing you the Trade4MSMEs platform, great resource for researchers, market analysts, and small businesses. Before that, we will show you the Global Trade Helpdesk. This is a one-stop shop resource for small businesses, for also researchers, market analysts, literally everybody. This is there to simplify also your research if you want to target any foreign markets in a couple of mouse clicks. Just a couple of housekeeping rules. Leave your comments in chat. You can ask us questions in the Q&A section. We will answer them at the end of our webinar, and then there will be a direct Q&A, so you can leave your questions in chat so I can keep track of them and ask my colleagues to elaborate on them. After the session, you will receive the PowerPoint presentation and a recording of the session in case you missed anything or you want to share it with any of your colleagues or people you work with. So without further ado, I will pass the floor to Anya.
Sure. So Anna Jankowska-Eriksson, and as Adelia already mentioned, I'm a market analyst or trade economist at the International Trade Center. I've been working on different aspects related to trade research, but also on trying to develop platforms to make trade easier for businesses. And maybe I'll pass to Catherine, who can also introduce herself.
Thank you, Anya. Yes, my name is Catherine Lundquist. I'm at the World Trade Organization, and I'm an economic analyst there. And I work to support micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises and the informal working group at the World Trade Organization. So I'm very pleased to get to present to you one of the outputs from this group, the Trade4MSMEs web platform, and all of the resources that it has available. Back to you, Anya.
Thank you. Okay, I think maybe we'll get this show started, if that's okay with you, Adelia. So I will what I'd like to do quickly is to just guide you through how these platforms work and how they work together. And then Catherine and I will do a little bit of a deeper dive into each of them. So what I'd like to start with is just why we're here. What we found in working with businesses from all over the world is that sometimes there's a lot of different sources of information that are available. Information is scattered, it's abundant, but sometimes, especially for smaller businesses, which are really big on talent, big on potential, but maybe have less time and resources, it's harder to find the reliable information and to put it together in a way that you feel comfortable making an informed business decision. So in order to simplify this process and in order to make life a little bit easier, we have created the Global Trade Helpdesk and the Trade4MSMEs platforms to really guide you through the entirety of the trade journey. So what this allows you to do is to have access to all of the guides you need to really be able to guide you through the entire export journey, as well as simplify your market research and give you specific data that you need along the way. So this is a little bit our representation of how this works, but we'll give you one concrete example. So for instance, if you're a rice exporter from India, but you're new to export, first, maybe you'd like to think about what are the basics of exporting and how do you actually do this in practice? And next, maybe you'd like to see how ready you are for export and take a readiness assessment. And these are all resources found on Trade4MSMEs. Next, you might be ready to think about which are the markets that could be interesting for your product. So you might consult the Global Trade Helpdesk and compare some of the markets and see how attractive those opportunities are. And next, you might be interested in finding resources on how to put together your contract. What are Incoterms? Why are these important? What are the responsibilities associated with them? What are your financing options? And these are all aspects that are once again covered on the Trade4MSMEs platform and all have specific guides to be able to help you along the way. Next, you might be interested in what are the actual trade formalities, the trade procedures, who are the contact points, or maybe connecting with specific trade finance providers, IP offices, TPOs, freight forwarders. So this is once again a resource that's available through the Global Trade Help Desk. And last but not least, maybe you're interested in growing your business through e-commerce or exploring different technologies. So here you can consult actually different aspects of both platforms. We have information about digital payments, we have information about online marketplaces, and we have different guides that can even help you set up your own website for your business and some of the resources that could help you through that. So we really try to help you, give you the pieces that you need along the way. So I will quickly just dive into the Global Trade Help Desk. So the Global Trade Help Desk was launched, or at least the idea was created back in 2017. And it was really a moment where international organizations realized that while we're all putting out databases and tools out there, sometimes for small businesses, this really isn't a great option. So we tried to join forces and create a centralized single data entry point, at least bringing together the information from WTO, from UNCTAD, from ITC, from the World Bank, from the African Development Bank, the Inter-American Development Bank, World Customs Organizations, and other partners to try to create one single, hopefully accessible avenue to find this information. So the Global Trade Help Desk was launched in 2020 on MSME Day. And it's a resource available in 6 languages at globaltradehelpdesk.org. And we will go through in just a moment to show you how it works in practice. But we're particularly excited at the moment to be able to share with you also the newest section of the Global Trade Help Desk, which is focused on e-commerce opportunities. And it provides a few different pieces of information. It gives you a proxy of how likely or how involved the country is likely to be in e-commerce through the digital payment coverage, which comes from the World Bank. It gives you, whenever possible, the de minimis value or the tariff-free threshold, as e-commerce often involves small packages. Depending on the value of that package, it might fall below the taxable or dutiable rate. We also provide links to online marketplaces available from the Ecom Connect community, but also the University of Amsterdam, to show you how many visitors there are and what are the marketplaces available in your target markets. And for those that are looking to sell from their own websites or via social media, we also summarize some of the digital payment solutions that are available and give you a sense of how to access those. Now, in general, the Global Trade Help Desk tries to walk the user through a specific process. What we'd like to walk you through is first assessing how economically attractive your market is. So we're going to look at import demand. We're also going to look at forward-looking export potential. We want to look at what's already happened and our estimations of what we think is probable in the next 5 years. Once we have an idea of which markets are actually attractive in the economic sense, we're going to think about how much it's going to cost us to enter those markets, and from a number of different perspectives. First, is there an import duty? Do we have a preferential tariff? What are the rules of origin associated with that to be able to actually benefit from this? Next, we're also going to think about the regulatory requirements, because oftentimes tariffs aren't the big issue. It's really the regulations that are so different in every market that can be a real constraint to exporters. And we're also going to take a brief look at private sustainability standards, because now a lot of companies are going green. A lot of companies are getting different environmental certifications, social certifications. They're interested in fair trade or organic markets. This can definitely give you a higher price in your target market, but you may need additional information and additional sustainability certifications to be able to benefit that. As I already highlighted, we have the new Go Digital section, which will give us a little bit of an overview of some of the e-commerce opportunities. And last but not least, we give some practical information, contact information for other businesses, for banks, for logistics providers, and other partners you might want to connect with. So without further ado, I wanted to take you through a quick example. Since we are joining you from Switzerland today, from Geneva, I wanted to take a slightly more unusual product. I wasn't going to go with cheese today. I wanted to go with something a little bit more high-tech, some artificial joints, since the medical industry is actually quite attractive in Switzerland. And I wanted to compare the target markets of China and Japan. So if you'll excuse me, I will share another screen and walk you through a brief example. So as I mentioned, the website is currently available in 6 languages: English, French, Spanish, Portuguese, Russian, and Arabic. Next year, we plan to also make it available in Bahasa and Mandarin and possibly a few others. So please stay posted for additional languages. Now, you see there's a login button here, but the login is only necessary for one very specific piece of information, and that's company information coming from ITC TradeMap. This requires an extra login, but it's free from just about everywhere on the planet. But to get started, what we're going to do is we're going to fill in the search bar. So I am exporting. I'll leave that selected. I will look at the Swiss market, and for my product, I'm looking for artificial joints. And the query box here is going to propose to me certain HS codes. I can see that this is actually the correct code. It's orthopedic appliances, including crutches, surgical belts and trusses, splints, artificial parts of the body. And I can see at the bottom, it says artificial joint. So I'm going to select this product. And then in this box, if I know already which market I'm interested in, I can go ahead and type it in, or I can push the Find Markets button. Now, the Find Markets button takes information from ITC Export Potential Map, which is a forward-looking model, and it gives you benchmark export values that we expect for this, or could potentially expect for this product, to each target market. So for the US, we can see that we believe there could be exports of up to 65 or 652 million by 2028, Germany 194. And for the Chinese market, there's 150 million of potential that we estimate. So I'm going to select China just as an example, and I'm going to click on Go. And it's going to bring up the market summary, which gives me a bit of an overview and also gives me links to dig deeper in other platforms if I would like to do that. So first, I can see the size of the market. Globally, China imports 736 million in artificial joints. It's the 4th largest importer in the world. We can see that Switzerland has a relatively modest market share for the moment of 3%, and it's declined slightly over the last couple of years. But the last imports from China were about 25.6 million, and we estimate that there's still quite a bit of room for growth in the coming years. Maybe we're expecting a lot more artificial joints for all of us in the coming years. Now, in terms of how much you need to pay in terms of import tariffs, we can see that there is an eligible, you might be eligible for a preferential tariff, and that the range is between 0 and 4%. So we can see that there is a preferential tariff for Switzerland and Liechtenstein, 0%. And we can see that the MFN duty, which is applied to all WTO members, is 4%. So there's a preferential margin of 4% if you're able to qualify. Now, you need to make sure that your regional value content, or the share from your country or region, is at least 45% to meet this rule of origin. So our Swiss artificial joints need to include 45% inputs from Switzerland to be considered Swiss enough to benefit from this preferential tariff of 0%. This will, of course, be different. If there's different trade agreements, we can see that there are different rules, and we can compare that whenever relevant. Now that we know how attractive our market is, how much it costs to get there, we can also see additional information about regulations. So we can see this. We can, for instance, take a look at some of the Chinese regulations on artificial joints, some of the product requirements. And what we can see is there are product safety or performance requirements. It's the law of the Republic of China on the prevention and control of environmental pollution and waste. So we can get an overview and a summary of each of the relevant laws that applies here. And if we would like to, we can also get the full text on PDF. It will be in the original language, so you may need to DeepL or Google Translate to be able to get all of the details, but the original text is available for all of those that are interested in it. So as we can see, there's a number of different regulations here, hygienic requirements, import authorizations, but as a business, you will go through them and see exactly how you can comply with each of these and get the relevant details. We also actually have a few domestic requirements on the Swiss side for the export of artificial joints. So we can see that there is a export permit that's required. So there's a license to be able to export artificial joints. And there's also administrative measures that monitor the export value or volume of this product. So also on the Swiss side, there's a few things that you will want to keep in mind to make sure that you comply with all of the relevant customs procedures and regulations. Now, once we have an idea of how much it's going to cost us and that our artificial joints are Swiss enough to benefit from the tariff and they meet all requirements, we can also think about sustainability standards. Now, for something like artificial joints, to be honest, I don't know if anyone's going to want an organic artificial joint or what that would even mean, or what an ethically traded artificial joint would mean. But for products that are agricultural, for textiles, like these are the things that would really matter. So in case this is the case for your product, you can get an overview of each of the standards that might apply, and you can follow the link on Sustainability Map. And here you'll get an overview of which sectors it applies to, what's the geographical scope, what are the specific requirements. For instance, here we have a lot of social requirements, some management and ethics, and some environmental. And you can get the details for each of these requirements, including how much time you have to comply and all of the details here. So not necessarily relevant for our artificial joints, but just something to keep in mind also for other products. Now, in terms of digital opportunities, we can see that 85% of the Chinese population utilizes digital payments, which is quite high. It doesn't surprise me given the popularity of e-commerce in China. For our de minimis value, if I click here on low value shipments, I can see that there are two thresholds in China. There's a general threshold of 50 renminbi, and then there's an e-commerce clearance channel of 5,000. So these are the values below which you will not be charged an import duty in China. Now, how you qualify for the e-commerce channel, this might require a bit of additional digging with customs, but this is the value to be aware of in terms of the thresholds. Now, if you're looking to sell on a specific marketplace in China, we have information on what are the top marketplaces with the number of visitors. So Taobao has 3.7 billion, for instance. But we can also see whether or not they're open to foreign sellers. And we can see, for instance, that the top marketplace is not open to foreign sellers. But if we scroll down, for instance, VIP, we can open that, is open to foreign sellers. And I had asked Google to help me figure out how to say artificial joints in Chinese. So we can see what are the products that might be similar or associated and get some of the prices. So here, not sure how many of these are artificial joints, but these are all products related to joints. And you can have a look at what some of the competition might look like, what the market might look like there. In addition, if you're looking to sell your artificial joints from your own website in Switzerland or on social media channels in China, you might be interested in making sure you have a digital payment solution. So PayPal is obviously a huge one, but WeChat Pay, Paysera, there's a lot of different solutions. We can see which are the supported currencies by mousing over in this column. And we can also see if there are any specific fees associated with using and registering for these services. So you can make that comparison and also find information about what users have said about these services and compare to make sure they fit your needs. Now, once we have thought about our e-commerce opportunities, we might still want to consider connecting with other businesses and potential buyers. We have information that comes from the IDB, Connect Americas. And then for those that have a trade map account, which is free in most countries, this is the only part that requires a login. You can access that by logging into your trade map account, and then it will automatically redirect you to, for instance, equipment and instruments for medical laboratories, and we can find out about companies in China that are involved in this specific sector and have their name, have some information about them, and sometimes even websites and contact information. Now, in addition to the information about, in addition to our business directory, we have intellectual property offices for registering our IP. We have trade finance providers, trade promotion agencies, and also a link to IATA OneSource, which takes us to freight forwarders that are serving the Swiss market and can get your goods to the Chinese market. So this is also something that we're hoping to expand in collaboration with IATA in the coming months. So once we have had a look at our full market overview, and we're not entirely convinced that the Chinese market is looking promising for our artificial joints, and we'd like to compare the German market instead, and we can get all of the same information updated in a single click and compare as many markets as we wish. We can also just edit our search at the top and select any market that we're interested in and have all of the same details to be able to evaluate how interesting this is. Now, aside from this information, this is meant to serve as a market scan, right? It's meant to give you an overview of some of the key characteristics to be able to narrow down your search to a few target markets. You're still going to want to figure out the consumer preferences in the market. You're still going to need to check out the logistical costs. You're still going to need to see the exact price that you could get in this market. So there's still a few additional steps that we can't standardize through a database, but the idea is really to help you quickly and easily access the information you need to be able to think about how to best take advantage of these opportunities. Now, I will ask you to please give it a try for yourself. We have a couple of quick questions for you and one scenario. Let me share my screen again. So we did artificial joints. Now, if you could all please open either on your phones or on your desktops, wherever you are, globaltradehelpdesk.org. And we're going to ask you to pretend you're an exporter from the UK exporting whiskey. You can type in whiskey or 220830. And you're going to think about the target markets of Singapore and India. And Adelia, would you maybe like to launch the Zoom poll and walk us through some of the questions?
Absolutely, I do. Once I appear on screen, yes. So the quiz, the Zoom poll is up and running on your Zoom screen. You can access it and then vote once you find your answers. And then we have three questions for you, actually. No, there's four. First one is, according to ITC estimates, what is the market with the highest export potential we can identify when exporting whiskey, HS code 220830, from United Kingdom? Is it Singapore, is it France, or is it United States of America? Second question is, will a British exporter of whiskey benefit from any preferential tariff when exporting to Singapore? Yes or no? Simple question. And the next one is, among all the Indian import of whiskey, what market share does United Kingdom currently have? 11%, 16%, or 69%? And the last one, based on everything you have just seen with this simple search, which market would you rather export to, Singapore or India? And then we can elaborate on that and show you how we found the answers. And yes, please take your time. There is 4 questions, so you have at least 5 minutes for everything.
Thank you, Adelia. So yes, Global Trade Helpdesk, your exporter is the United Kingdom. If you type in whiskey, it will automatically come up with the HS code, and then your target markets are Singapore and India. Now, obviously, you will do this for your own products, and this is the Global Trade Helpdesk covers over 5,200 different products at the 6-digit level in the harmonized system. We just wanted to have you try it for this product so that you can give it a look and come back with any questions, any comments. Thank you. And here are the answers that we received from you. So for the first question, according to ITC estimates, what's the market with the highest export potential we can identify for whiskey exported from the UK? 47% of you answered correctly. It's the United States of America. Now we will quickly go through the answers to make sure, to show you how we got there. Now, will a British exporter benefit from any preferential tariff when exporting to Singapore? 68% of you voted yes. We will double check that one. Among all the Indian import of whiskey, what share does the UK have? So what's the import share for India? What's from the UK? And 39% of you said 69%, which I believe is correct. And now, which market would you rather export to, Singapore or India? We'll have a quick look together because I think you could argue in both directions, depending on your criteria. So here we are back at Global Trade Help Desk. I'm going to take us back to the home page. And I'm exporting from the United Kingdom. We said whiskey, which is 220830. And we were interested first in the Indian market. So
maybe we first want to see which market has the highest export potential.
Yes, sorry. You're right. Good call, Adelia. You have such good ideas. So we could have seen that already without even conducting the search. So if I put in United Kingdom and whiskey, and I just look at this and click on this Find Markets button, it will propose the relative export potential from the top 10 markets. So here we can see that these are markets ranked by total export potential in the coming 5 years for United Kingdom's exports of whiskey. And we can see that 1.8 billion actually would go to the US. So the US apparently is a strong consumer of whiskey from the United Kingdom, and there's a lot of potential still in this market. So we were interested though in the Indian market. So I will go ahead and select India and click on Go. And then the next question had to do with import share, right? We see that there's an import share of 69%. So of the global imports of India for whiskey, 69% come from the United Kingdom. And what were the other questions, Adelia? Oh, will you?
There was a question, will a British exporter of whiskey benefit from any preferential tariff when exporting to Singapore?
To Singapore. Okay, so for that, we're going to need to edit because right now we're looking at India. So let's take a look at Singapore instead and update our results. And we can see actually that there is an MFN duty of 0%, but there's no trade agreement per se. So you won't get a preferential agreement tariff, but you will get a duty-free rate. So maybe that was a slightly confusing question, but there is no preferential tariff for the UK in particular, but there is a 0% duty for all WTO exporters on whiskey in particular. What was the other question, Adelia? Could you remind me, please?
Sure. I think the last one would be, which market would you rather import to, export to?
Which market would you rather export to? So we can see that Singapore, we have export potential of 535 million. We already have 621 million in imports, so we're doing extremely well. We have 84% of this market. It's been growing steadily. We have a duty-free rate here. So looks quite promising. Now, if we compare it to India, we can see that India has a smaller import value there. It's a slightly smaller market. The import share is still quite high and it is growing quite quickly. So maybe perhaps we could see quite a bit more growth there. But we can also see that there's a quite high import duty on whiskey in India. Maybe perhaps we're protecting some domestic whiskey producers, which also makes sense. So I think in one sense, Singapore seems like an easier, maybe cheaper alternative. But I guess it also depends on your logistics costs and perhaps some of your distribution costs. Maybe that could make a difference in your decision as well. And also how strong your brand recognition might be. But both both markets could be interesting, but probably Singapore, at least from the limited information that we have or from the overview that we have, could possibly be the easier choice. Okay, so I stopped there. And the only other couple of comments I wanted to make is that what you can expect in the coming year at the Global Trade Help Desk is that, as I mentioned, we're going to expand into new languages, Bahasa and Mandarin. And we're also going to be looking at trying to incorporate AI technologies into our platform to make information even more accessible. So you might benefit from automatic reports and some sort of chatbot that's coming, that's in the works. But this is our plan in the next year or so. But without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Catherine for the second part of our show, and I'll go back to the slides. And Catherine can walk us through trade for MSMEs and show us the other half of this picture, which is very important.
Before we get to Catherine, just a quick interruption. Do we want to answer the chat questions related to Global Trade Help Desk now, or would you prefer to have a big session at the very end?
I think maybe we do it at the end, if that's okay.
Yes, totally.
All together.
No problem. Sorry, Catherine, and thank you, Anya, for the presentation. The floor is yours.
Not at all. Thanks a lot, both of you. And thank you, Anya, again. Every single time that I do this with you, I learn more about the Global Trade Help Desk. And I hope all of you who have joined today have learned quite a bit as well. It is an incredible resource with a lot of information on there. But I would like to introduce you to the Trade4MSMEs website, which is a product from the World Trade Organization informal working group on micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, as I mentioned earlier. I think, having listened to Anya's presentation, there might have been many questions that came up in terms of what are these topics, or what are these items that are being discussed here? What is an HS code, for example, or what are some of these other terminologies that are coming through in the trade environment? And this is something where the Trade4MSMEs website is here to try to help you. It's been described, at least by one user, as the Wikipedia for trade. I would love it to be that way. We do have access to a number of resources linked here. Over 600 resources are linked through the Trade4MSMEs website. And I will go through some of the guides that have been curated for users. And if I can have the next slide, please. The Trade4MSMEs website was an idea from one of the MSME group members. And this was back in 2019, I believe. And it was that there's a lot of information about trade, but it is scattered and it's hard to access. Was there some way that we could create a portal to all of this information, to bring it into one place so that it would be much more easily accessible? But not only just for businesses, also for policymakers, because this is true across the board, really, for anyone involved in this sphere. There's a lot of terminology, and there's a lot of information, that really good information that's being put out there, but finding it can be a challenge. So that's where Trade4MSMEs comes through. And you'll see here on our homepage that you have two different options on the right-hand side. There's one for businesses and entrepreneurs, and the other for policymakers and researchers. And these two different options have slightly different information available, different guides that are more relevant for one user or the other. However, we also have a general search feature that I will highlight as well. And just as Anya mentioned that the Global Trade Help Desk has 6 languages, Trade4MSMEs, we are working our way up, and hopefully one day we'll have more languages. Currently, it is accessible in not only English, but also Spanish and French. And that's, you can see up in the upper right corner, you can select the language. If I could have the next slide, please. I would like to take you through the business and entrepreneurs section. So clicking on that link first, you'll find that you have two different entryways. One for goods traders, and the other for services traders. And this might not be clear immediately to users, but there is quite a big difference between these two options for trading. It's not only goods that are being traded abroad. And we are very aware that for smaller businesses in particular, it's often services that are being traded. And these have different challenges sometimes if you're operating in international markets. So when you ask what are services, in this case, it's any item that does not have a physical representation, but that you are providing for somebody else, such as programming, or for example, architecture is one that's brought up frequently, or engineering services, other thought processes. If we go forward, I'll take you through the goods section, though, as services can sometimes be a little more esoteric, I suppose, or harder to pin down. In this case, as we already saw in Anya's slides, we have roadmaps, and these roadmaps are actually through any section of the either for goods or for services, and then I will also show you briefly for policymakers as well. And these have different stops along the roadmap that are supposed to sort of take you through the journey of trade and the different items that you might need to be considering. So as you can see at the very first stop, it's what should I know before trading goods? And then you'll, if you go and explore the website, you'll see moving along the journey, there are different topics, including how do I access trade finance, or how do I access finance? Other things like what should I know to trade digital goods or to trade online? And finally, how do I resolve a trade dispute? And if I can have the next slide, please. If you were to click on any of those stops along the roadmap, it would take you down on that same page. And here are the options and the various guides that we have created. And each of these guides has a different topic and different content in it. And the content is supposed to be around a 1 page, so hopefully a relatively quick read about what this item is, followed by a series of links to different resources. I bring this up, I will go through the export readiness assessment guide that we have, but returning back to the harmonized system and the HS codes, we do have a separate guide on that topic specifically, which you can search for and go through and access other information that would include even trainings about this topic and could potentially help you find the right HS code going forward. Thank you, Delia. So here we have an example of a guide. As I noted, it's information about this topic. So it's a series of questions, like why, what are the benefits of exporting? Is my business export ready? And the information there. And then, as I mentioned, links to supporting information. And going forward, we will return back to the home screen. And I'm going to take you, if I can have the next slide, please, through policymakers and researcher section. So this is a slightly different, you'll notice that the roadmap here is not a linear line from trying to get from start to finish. In this case, it's more information and different stops along the way about what are guides on key issues that policymakers need to be aware of. There are a lot of topics for small businesses. There's the issue of trade and gender. There are other issues related to environmental sustainability and sustainability discussions there. And I encourage you to go through these guides. They have a lot of information and links to other resources. I also want to highlight what MSME trade data sources are available. We have a list of different sources of information about trade and micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises that are available, which is sometimes hard to locate. If I could have the next slide, please. Here's just an example of the guide section for policymakers. I mentioned gender, but also regional trade agreements are continuing to be an important area where small businesses are playing for trade. If I can have the next slide, please. I also want to highlight the search. As I noted, we have over 600 resources linked to within Trade4MSMEs. So this is a lot of information. But this is also an easier way to search for the guides if you don't want to explore via the different maps that are available in the website. And you can also search for it filtering by topic or whether you're a business or policymaker. If I can have the next slide, please. I want to also highlight that on the homepage, we have resources that are available by region of the world. There's a map down below. And so if you scroll down and you click on one of these, you will go into one of these regions, but you can see in the next slide, I think I have selected Europe. Yes. So if you go in here, you will see a brief description about Europe. You can access some information about the trade and other resources that are linked directly to Europe. And in the next slide, it's as though you were to scroll down, you will see all of the different economies that we have listed within the European region. And if you click on one, and in this case, I have Albania as the option, you will see here a brief overview of Albania's trade, general information that includes the information about, for example, the currency, the capital, the legal system, and the language. Other information, financial and contact information if you have questions. So these are all pieces of information that are either pulled from the ITC, sometimes they are pulled from the Global Trade Help Desk. So you can see that there's a lot of interrelationships between these two websites. Other information is taken directly from other resources as well. And at the bottom, you can see TBT inquiry points. These are different people who have been notified to the WTO as resources available for you if you have questions. Moving on to the next slide. I also just want to end with something that's a little more fun. So it's accessible on the Trade4MSMEs website. This is called the Trade Game. And moving on to the next slide, it's very, very last one. The Trade Game is really an export readiness assessment tool. It is a choose your own adventure game where you are trying to export a product on time and within budget from your selected economy to your selected destination. And these are all fictional destinations. We worked very closely with the ITC as well in terms of review of this trade game and trying to make sure that it at least paralleled reality to as much as possible as you could within one of these games. We also have, I would encourage you, if you are to play this game, to look at the help within the game itself. We even link to guides that are supposed to model the Global Trade Help Desk that should give you more information about the product that you've selected and your potential destination market. So with that, I'll leave you there, and I really hope that you do have some time to look at the Trade4MSMEs website and that it can be useful to you.
Thank you. I think maybe now, Adelia, we could see what questions you have for us. And these are our contact emails. We can also paste them into the chat. If you have questions also in the future, please don't hesitate to reach out. And feel free also to contact me on LinkedIn. Happy to also take questions that way in the future. Adelia, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Anya. Thank you very much, Catherine, for your very insightful presentation. So we have had a bunch of questions. Let's start with the ones that apply to both of our platforms. First is a comment and a question. Congratulations to our team. Thank you very much. It seems like it is very easy and comprehensive to access both types of information on both platforms, but why are they not in one portal? Why don't we just have it all jammed in one? Who's going to take that one?
I think maybe in the future we'll find a way for artificial intelligence to guide you through both at the same time. But I mean, I think we had slightly different objectives. We wanted to make the Global Trade Help Desk really, let's say, business specific and information that guides businesses for a very specific just market analysis. We wanted to limit the scope to not overwhelm. I think the goal of Trade4MSMEs was slightly broader in the sense to really give an overview of all of the different topics that are related to trade and to try to give, let's say, a reliability stamp to the types of information that we find is relevant and useful. I don't know, Catherine, if you want to comment on that. It's a hard question, huh?
Thank you, Anya. This is obviously something that both of our teams have considered since we do work very closely and the two are incredibly linked together. I mean, the short answer is that they were developed on slightly different time schedules. In fact, the Global Trade Help Desk came before Trade4MSMEs, and then Trade4MSMEs was thinking, what is the gap that is being left by the Global Trade Help Desk, which is comprehensive in itself, but it's really one of information. And so, you know, these things take time, and I believe that technology, as Anya said, could help us to stitch these two together, but it's an objective of both of us.
Thank you, ladies. Next question also interlinked to both. If we can tell that, how many visitors on average does each platform have per year? I know we have been monitoring that one for the GTH closely since about spring this year. Maybe we could share that data or...
So, I mean, overall, the GTH has about 200,000, well, 190 to 200,000 users, but I'd say like per month, we're at about 10,000 from across 170 normally economies. We've seen a lot of growth in Asia this year, which we're really excited about, and we also hope to grow more in the future. I mean, to be honest, I think that we haven't done a great job yet in terms of promoting the platform, and I don't know how we make businesses even more aware of it. So if you could help be our ambassadors in that, that would be fantastic. But yeah, we're still hoping to grow in the visibility.
I was wondering if I should have maybe spoken before, Anya, because our numbers are significantly smaller than the Global Trade Help Desk, but we are trying to work on this, and we launched a revised version of the Trade4MSMEs website just this past June, and I think that has helped significantly. We're now at around 1,500 users per month, which, I mean, this is very small. This is like pennies, but we are working and we're trying to do more outreach. And every session that we have with the Global Trade Help Desk is helpful, and we can see the numbers increase. So we will continue our work.
Absolutely. Catherine, a question for you. Is there any trade game manual in PDF that is available for beginners to understand the key learning points?
So that's an excellent question. We don't have a manual. I feel as though the game itself, in a way, is a manual, and it's supposed to sort of give you an idea of the questions that you might have. I will put out there that many players. How do I phrase this? Playing it multiple times is perhaps beneficial. That I have had players who have been in the trade world a long time, but who have not actually physically traded themselves and have found it challenging. These are questions that you will really need to consider going forward, just in terms of, am I ready to start thinking about exporting? What is it that I need to think about exporting? When I have decided on my destination, what transportation am I going to use? And will it actually derail my idea of profitability if I were to choose, for example, shipping it via airplane as opposed to via cargo? So because of the time constraints and the value constraints that are imposed in the game, I think it's very helpful just in terms of exploring. And that's also why I mentioned the help manuals within the game itself, because we did try to curate these to give you information. And most of this information we gathered from the Trade4MSMEs website and from the guides, but also from the Global Trade Help Desk, to try to walk you through the different considerations that would help you choose correct answer is not the right word, but choose an answer that would help you successfully complete the journey.
Thank you, Catherine. All right, we have a bunch of questions for the Global Trade Help Desk, and I see a recurring one is, any data about services coming along soon, and when?
Well, Catherine already covers services. I think that's Trade4MSMEs is ahead of the game on that one. For Global Trade Help Desk, we definitely want to cover services, but right now it's a question of the quality and the disaggregation of services trade data, which unfortunately for many countries, there's still not bilateral services trade data available at a very disaggregated level. So certainly something we're working towards, and we have some ideas. But it may take another couple of years before we can really provide a similar level of quality and detailed information on the services side. Certainly, there's much more information about regulations coming out now, and there's even databases of services businesses. I mean, the landscape is growing, but still not quite there yet. So, but certainly something we're working towards. So yes, that's the most common question we get. The second most common question we get at webinars is, how often is your data updated? And so just to quickly knock that one out in case it's out there, we have APIs for about 95% of the information that you see on Global Trade Help Desk directly with the WTO, with UNCTAD, with all of the databases that provide the information. So as soon as they're updated in their source, which can be sometimes multiple times per year, sometimes once a year, it really depends on the piece of information, it's automatically updated in the Global Trade Help. Back to you, Adelia.
Thank you, Anya. And Catherine, there was also a question about data update on Trade4MSMEs. How often is the update? And then, yeah, region specific. Thank you.
Thank you. So because the guides themselves are pretty stable, those are not regularly updated, and the links within them should be taking you to information that is current and accessible. We continue to add resources, and this is just an ongoing process. So these would go into our library, our database of links that have information available to you. The country-related information, this is one that we are working to update annually. We're in the process of updating it now. You will notice that if you read through the descriptions on each of the countries, I think that the reference year currently is 2021, and this has to do with the data that we were pulling through the World Trade Organization. This data has since been updated, and we are in the process of updating these, and hopefully in early 2024, all of that will also be updated as well.
Thank you, Catherine. As I was typing the email addresses in the chat, Anya beat me to it. So thank you, Anya, for being quick and fast. So we have answered the information on the data update. I have a question to Global Trade Helpdesk that I believe I can answer. Does it cover information for African countries as well? Yes, it does. It covers all the countries that we cover with our other tools, and it is global, so it is intended for many regions. Question about the import requirements.
I will only jump in there just to say one thing, that sometimes we don't have perfect coverage of every market. So for instance, specifically for regulations, this is an area where unfortunately we don't have 240 economies covered across the world. This is dependent on the collection of data, sometimes by governments and sometimes by the agencies. It's ITC, UNCTAD, and ALADI that actually collect all of the regulatory information that you'll find in Global Trade Helpdesk. So sometimes this unfortunately isn't perfectly covered. But I agree with Adelia that we have over 220 economies available on GTH, and you'll find all of the available information for each market.
Thank you. Perfect. Some people have been using ITC Trade Map, Market Access Map, and other tools, and they want to know if they can use them individually or they should just swap it and use the Global Trade Helpdesk solely.
That's an excellent question. I would argue that these are complementary, but I personally will use Global Trade Helpdesk to scan markets and to see where I want to dig deeper. But that doesn't mean I won't use Trade Map to look at the national tariff line, to see sometimes there's statistics that are available at the monthly level, at the quarterly level. It gives me different details that can be useful. And for instance, sometimes I want to see what is the world market for this product? Who are the main importers? So these are complementary tools. Global Trade Helpdesk really tries to synthesize at the most disaggregated and most precise level at the 6 digits, where it's still internationally comparable, but it can't give you the big picture and zoom in at the same time. So yeah, and I would say that in MacMap, you can see, for instance, there's these maps you can use to see what are all of the countries, what tariffs are all of the countries charging to your specific product, which I think are really, really valuable and not at all something that we can incorporate into GTH at this time. So I would argue use both, but for different purposes.
Perfect. Thank you. I apologize. We might not have time to answer all of the questions in chat, but we're doing our best. Maybe just a couple of more. And then if you have any further questions, as Anya posted in chat, you can reach out to us using those emails. I will copy paste them once again so you don't lose them. There was another question about company data. As an exporter, there is an exporter of a giant squid from Peru, and they want to know how using Global Trade Helpdesk they can access company data.
Thank you for your question. Giant squid sounds very, very interesting. So the company data in Global Trade Helpdesk comes from 3 sources. One is Connect Americas from the Inter-American Development Bank. If you would like to be listed within Global Trade Helpdesk, you register through Connect Americas. You create a profile through Connect Americas, and you will, whenever your product is relevant to any search, be listed within Global Trade Helpdesk. Now, for the potential importer data, it also comes from Dun & Bradstreet and from Compass database. These are private databases that are, the information is available through TradeMap, but it's not collected by TradeMap. These are private data sources, which is why they require a login. And this is information that's compiled by the private sector and updated every year. So these are, let's say, external databases that we provide access to, but that we don't personally collect all of the information. I hope that answers your question.
I hope so too. Thank you, Anya. What are the sources of information for Global Trade Helpdesk? Is it provided by the governments? And what happens if the country is not a member of WTO?
So the sources for the Global Trade Helpdesk are many. The information comes from, I showed you the slide of the different agencies that are involved in providing information from the Global Trade Helpdesk. I would argue that the vast majority comes from governments. So for instance, governments collect through their national bank or through their customs agency trade statistics. Those are shared with either the WTO or with ITC that integrated into a database. And this is the information that's then linked into the Global Trade Helpdesk. Even if your country is not associated with the WTO or not a WTO member directly, we have information for 220 countries in terms of trade statistics. And where we don't have trade statistics directly, we calculate something called mirror statistics, which are based on the reports of the countries that they export to. So these are also clearly linked so that you can tell the difference between, there'll be an asterisk when it's not directly reported data. And so you can see the best estimation that we have for imports for a specific country if they don't already report their data directly. The information really does come from a lot of different sources. The e-commerce information comes from Global Express Association, from World Bank, and the marketplaces are collected by specialists on e-commerce at the University of Amsterdam. The trade procedure information comes from UNCTAD, but also from the WTO Trade Facilitation Database. So there's really a lot of different sources. On the websites, you can see directly below each piece of information what the source is. And you can also click on the link to go to the original source of information if you'd like to see it in closer detail, or you can always contact us and we can provide further details.
Thank you, Anya. Sorry, I was just replying, trying to juggle many things at the same time. Unfortunately, I'm not a giant squid and I have only 2 hands, but I'm trying. Is there any difference between Global Euro Help Trade Helpdesk? I believe this is Euromed Helpdesk and Global Trade Helpdesk.
The difference is just in coverage. Euromed Trade Helpdesk covers the Euromed area, so Mediterranean countries, EU countries, plus Northern Africa. Global Trade Helpdesk has global coverage. There's slight differences in terms of Euromed Trade Helpdesk also has a, let's say, a network of institutions behind it that kind of provide additional information. That is something that we don't have integrated to GTH. We just answer your questions within the team without sending it to national institutions. Yes, I think that's the short answer there.
I clicked on mute and then I muted myself. Thank you, Anya, for that. Then there are very generic / also specific questions. I believe we can answer them now if we have time. Do you think, I mean, we still have a couple of minutes for the Q&A, right? So let's go. How can one be an ambassador? Do you work with governments? How do you promote the tools? It was one of the common themes across the questions.
Catherine, would you like to go first on that one?
Well, sure. I mean, in terms of how do we promote these tools, it's through webinars such as these that are organized by the ITC. We at the WTO also occasionally organize webinars. We will all be doing a joint one together at the Arab SME Summit this December, so next month, in Marrakech, and it's through sort of efforts piece by piece like this. Anya, I don't know if you have anything to add on that.
So What we also are willing to do, if your institution is interested, or if you think this could be of interest to the businesses you work with, is we'd love to also train you on the Global Trade Help Desk. And also sometimes we work with institutions that also give trainings themselves. So if this is of interest, please email us, let us know. We're happy to work more formally with you and also share materials if you could be interested. The other thing that we do is we work with, well, we've been lucky in many cases to have our websites cross-linked on different chambers of commerce and on different institutions. So if you would like to get a visual or anything that and you think you would like to cross-link either of these sites on your website, please also let us know, because this is something that has been done many times in the past and is always extremely helpful for us, but perhaps also for the businesses that you work with. I think that's the best answer I have on that one.
Thank you very much, Anya, for that. Yes, I just posted a link in chat so that you could evaluate our webinar today. We do value your feedback. We actually read it and we try to improve for the next sessions. We're here for you, and our tools are all free and there for you, for our users. So please take 2 minutes and evaluate us following the link to the Google survey. I'm just trying to see for the last questions. There was a question on export potential data and non-tariff measures, how often they're updated. I believe we already answered that. Export potential is an estimate, a forward-looking estimate, and a benchmark value in 5 years into the future that we calculate here in the house. And it is available in more details on the export potential map. And the non-tariff measures are updated as soon as they are collected, and there are e-ping notifications from WTO on TBT and SPS measures. So under each query for your product search, you will find the e-ping notifications on any recent updates. And I believe that is it. There was last question is, do we support with market linkages? I don't know if we could elaborate on that. It was asked by Firo El Hassan. And as he elaborates, we have also 3 people with their hands raised. I don't know if they want to type their questions in chat, or we could allow them to speak, perhaps. There was a question from Claudia since a while.
I'll be honest, I'm not quite sure what we mean by market linkages. So if someone could maybe clarify in the chat exactly what specifically we mean. And Claudia, if you would like to speak, please feel free to do so. Can you unmute yourself, Claudia?
Her hand was raised for way too long, maybe got tired. There was a
digital fatigue, I get it.
It did. There were two more people with their hands raised. There was Rifo Ehsan and Yunji Jung. If any of you still have any questions, please feel free. And I believe that is it.
Yeah, I did ask my question that is there any training will be available or not, because this looks to be a very new platform.
There will definitely be additional trainings. Also, as Adelia mentioned, we will share the recording and we will share all of the materials. And if you have further questions, we're happy to do demos with people or work with you directly. So please let us know if you have further questions or there's anything else we can do. I would also ask you once again, I reposted once again the link in the chat to the evaluation. Please fill it out, because we'd like to know what works, what you think goes well, but also any suggestions you have for additional information you want us to include in the future, what other topics could be of interest. If you see anything that you think could be useful, aside from the information and services, which we hope to get to, and filling any data gaps that we're already aware of, would be incredibly useful. So please help us out and spend 2 minutes to let us know what you thought of the webinar and of the platforms.
Thank you, Anya. And we have a new fresh hand by Sylvester Clarke. Sylvester, the floor is yours. If you have any questions, feel free.
Yes, good morning. What about persons like myself with dyslexia? Reading all that text is very challenging. And how can I facilitate a person like myself?
I'm sorry, Sylvester, I didn't quite catch that clearly. Would you mind repeating one more time?
How can you facilitate a person like myself with dyslexia? Reading all that text and typing questions and that kind of thing, reading all information on the website. I am lost with a lot of the stuff that you were saying by reading it and getting stuff typed.
Thank you for sharing that feedback, Sylvester. That's really useful for us. We have not thoroughly considered all of the accessibility of the information to people with dyslexia. But we will definitely think about the color contrasts that we use and think about how we can make that information more accessible. One of the things that we will be working towards is also having a lot of the information accessible in video format. So to be able to have AI-assisted videos that can help explain the concepts and explain the information. I hope that will maybe address some of the issues. But we're certainly willing to work with you and with other users if we can find ways to make the information suit your needs. It's very important to us.
That'd be fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sylvester. And a last raised hand by Bangura Saliu B. Bangura, do you have anything you would like to ask us?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, Bangura.
Yeah, let me first of all say a wonderful thanks to all the presenters, and I feel so amazing, and you have also motivated me to work more in the area of development and also how to fight to eradicate poverty in Africa and also in the world. The question that I have is, what are the measures that ITC have put together with WTO have put in place to help startup SMEs in Africa?
It's an excellent question, Banguru. I can give you part of that answer, and I can also connect you with our team of Office of Africa that can really give you an overview of our One Trade Africa program, which has quite a few different components in many different countries. I know that we have a tech startup program in particular across Africa, and we also work with specific value chains in different countries. In terms of information provision, we also have the Africa Trade Observatory, which is intended as a regional tool to help identify opportunities, especially within the continent, and to take advantage of the AFCFTA and further integration. But there are quite a number of different programs actually that are available. If you could actually, Bangura, write to me after the webinar, I would be very happy to connect you with our colleagues in the Office of Africa that can really give you the full spectrum of the different SME-related activities. Catherine, do you want to share on the WTO side?
Sure. On the World Trade Organization side, because we are it has to do with all of our members. We are not looking at any region in specifically. And in fact, the work that the MSME Informal Working Group does is for small businesses in general. We do have a small business champions. This is open to anyone. And we have had some applicants in the past from the African region. They've always had interesting work that they're doing to support small businesses in the region. I might encourage you to look at some of the winners of that effort, because it can give you some idea of what's happening in different parts of Africa. But otherwise, really, in general, the work that the Informal Working Group is doing is to help all small businesses, understanding that those who are perhaps marginalized the most could benefit the greatest from these efforts to facilitate trade, to provide information across the board. So I'll leave it there.
Okay. The reasons why I asked these questions, I have attended several trade exhibitions, and the sooner I carry out my product, because I'm in value addition. I process cassava into flour, and I use that cassava flour to so many confectionaries. Last week, I discovered another new product known as Benny cookies from cassava flour. And when I posted it on LinkedIn, I received over 72% of people that feel impressed towards improvement in my organizations. And I've received a lot of requests, particularly in the UK. I can recall at an West African competitiveness trade in Nigeria, I received a lot of requests for cassava flours and also the confectionaries. But as I'm talking to you, you know the situation in the world. One, access to finance is a big challenge for small SMEs in Africa, and also those banks that are operating in Africa. When we as an SMEs went at the bank to get access to loan, the interest rate is too much exorbitant. And in that area, there will not be a win-win for both we, the SMEs, and also the borrowers. So we need an organization that will step in to help create an access to finance for SMEs that are determined to help increase food sufficiency in the world.
No, those are excellent points, Bangura. Thank you so much for sharing them. And we'll be happy to connect you with our Office of Africa team so that you can also learn about the access to finance activities that are being developed. But I understand that this is absolutely a crucial challenge that's facing SMEs really in Africa, but also around the world. So thank you so much for sharing that, and thank you for attending this webinar. I see we're 5 minutes over time, and your time and attention is extremely valuable. Thank you all for joining us. And I just also wanted to once again thank you for those of you who have shared your feedback in our evaluation form. We will be sharing all of the materials and the recording with all of you. And so thank you again. And any support we can get in terms of getting the word out would be also greatly appreciated. And for those of you that have additional questions or would like to be linked up, for instance, Bangura, please let me know. I'm happy to connect you with our project team working in cassava, working in these types of products. I think it would be a pleasure to work with your business. So from my end, thank you so much. And I pass back to Adelia.
I'm going to share a mail with you right there just after the seminar. I'm always committed for development and also for promote food sufficiency, not in Africa, but in the world.
Thank you, Bangura. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Bangura, and thank you all the participants for asking your questions. This shows the interest, and I hope this session has actually been informative and you could learn something new, even if you already use our platforms. If you're familiar, they are always updating. I really like the new revamping of the Trade4MSMEs website. It's all really sleek and clean and pretty, and we constantly work on improving the Global Trade Helpdesk, and we're adding more information, so stay tuned. I did share with you our social media accounts. We often post updates on the webinars we have through the year in different languages, so please stay tuned, sign up. And yes, reach out to us if you have any further questions on linkages, on promotion, and anything specific to the tool. I really hope you enjoyed this session today. I will not take any more of your time. Thank you very much, Catherine, for your presentation. Thank you very much, Anya. And yes, thank you, dear participants.